Hi, budding structural engineers. Welcome to the structural engineering lectures and welcome to limited design of steel structures, conforming to IS 800 2007, the limited code for the steel structures. Right. Whereas in the previous class we have seen the wind loads acting on the structures and buildings, conforming to IS 875, part 3. Now in today's class we shall see the earthquake loads and earthquake resistant design of structures, conforming to IS 1893, part 1 2016. Part 1 deals with the general provisions and buildings. Right. Now let us see a few structural systems in tall buildings and high-rise structures, and as well as their heights. This is the first one, right? Number of stories on the y-axis, whereas here I am showing the different structural systems. The first one is a rigid frame. Right? This is a rigid frame can be had up to the 30-story building set, which consists of only just the columns and beams only, right? Whereas the second structural system is a frame come shear wall. Truss system, right? Here we do have the shear walls, right, in the central core, as well as the truss system, right? Therefore this is almost called a dual system. This can be had up to a 40-story building, right? The third one is belt truss, right? These are what called the outriggers. All these horizontal beams are what called outriggers, and these vertical columns are called outrigger columns, and this is what called a belt system, right? Hence this is called a outrigger belt truss system, which can be adopted up to 60-story buildings, right? The next system is the framed tube, right? Totally framed tube, right, consisting of all the columns arranged in the form of a tube, right? That is how this can be had up to a 80-story building height, right? The next one is the truss tube without truss tube with interior columns, right? This is truss tube with interior columns, right? Now we can see the trusses, all these trusses with that of the entire frame, the frame acting as if a tube, right, which are connected by means of these trusses, right, with interior columns. It can be had up to 100-story buildings. Next one is that of the bundled tubes, right? As if that of the framed tubes, all those framed tubes may be bundled, right, which are interconnected one with the other. Then that is what called the bundled tube. It can be had up to 110-story height, right? Whereas nowadays we do have the truss tube without interior columns, right? Whereas in the previous case it was with interior columns, right? Now we don't have any interior column. No, these type of structural systems can be had up to 140-story height. Now the same is now shown once again in terms of the heights, minimum height and maximum height for each of the structural system, student, right? This is of the first one. The first one is the rigid frame. The lower limit of the height is 0 feet. All these are in terms of feet, student, FES system, to a maximum height of 400 feet. Approximately each of the story is 10 feet, right? Therefore that is how this rigid frame at maximum is adaptable up to a maximum of 400 feet, means approximately 35 to 40 feet, 35 to 40 stories, right? The next one is the frame shear truss, or this is called a dual system. It can be used with a lower limit of 125 feet to maximum of upper bound of approximately say some 450, 470, or approximately say some 500, 550, not more, right? And this is 600, and this is therefore approximately 550 feet, right? Then the next one is belt truss, right? This is what just now we already seen with a lower limit of 400 feet. 400 feet means 40 stories to maximum of 800 feet. 800 feet means 80 stories, maximum of 80 stories. What all these, if you divide with 10, you will get number of stories, right? 40 stories to 80 stories. Therefore, 400 minimum height to maximum height of 800 feet. Next one is framed tube with a minimum height of 125 feet. 125 feet means approximately 12 stories to a maximum of approximately 1000 feet. 1000 feet means approximately 100 stories, right? And next one is truss tube without interior columns, starting from minimum of 800 feet means 80 stories to a maximum of approximately some 1100 feet means 110 stories height, right? And next one is bundled tubes starting from 250 means 25-story building to a maximum of approximately some 1500 means 150 stories, right? Next one is that of the truss tube without interior columns starting from the bare minimum lower limit of 800 feet means 80 stories to maximum of say approximately 1800 or to 1900, 1800 or 1800 plus, right? Means 180 stories, 180 story buildings, right? This is how the different structural system, students, right? We need to understand this, right? Whereas now let us see the world's tallest 10 buildings. The first one is what the Burj Dubai in UAE, which was built in 2008, and their heights, right? The height is almost 2722 feet. 2722 feet, right? Now the height is now shown in terms of feet: 500,000, 1500, 2000, etc., right? 2000. Whereas this peak height is 2722, or this is approximately 838 meters, right? And next one is this is the Freedom Tower in New York City, which is constructed in 2009 in the place of this World Trade Center, New York City, twin towers of W2O towers, each of height 1368 feet to 1362 feet, which were destroyed by the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. Right, these are the two north and south towers, which were built in 1972 and 73 respectively. Right? In its place, now we do have the one World Trade Center 1, right? World Trade Center, or is called Freedom Tower, right? Now its height is around 1776 feet, right? The third building is the Taipei 101 tower, which was built in 2004. Its maximum height is 1670 feet, right? The next one is the Shanghai World Finance Center, constructed in 2007, right? And its height is 1614 feet. This one is the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, built in 1998, and its maximum height is 4083 feet. The next one is the Sears Tower in Chicago, built in 1974. Its height is 1450 feet, right? And this is the Jian Mao Tower in Shanghai, built in 1999. Its height is 1381 feet. Right? These are the WTO towers which you already seen now, which are destroyed, right? And the two international finance centers located in Hong Kong, constructed in 2003. Its height is 1362, and the last one is Empire State Building, located in New York City, built in 1931, late in 1931. So almost roughly 90 years ago, right? Therefore, its height is 1250, right? Now let us see the same schematics, right? The same schematics in terms of meters, students, right? This is the first one is the Burj Khalifa, world's tallest towers, right? We are seeing that, right? Almost its height is 838 meters. The next one is all these are in now the heights are in terms of meters, 100 meters, 200 meters, so on and so forth, up to 600 meters, right? The next one is CN towers with a height of 553.3 meters, and Taipei 101 tower with 508 meter, and Petronas towers. This is what Petronas towers, 452 meters, and this is the Willis or Sears Tower, 442 meters height, right? And Jin Mao Tower, 421 meter approximately, right? And International Finance Center, this is approximately 442 meters, and this is City Plaza, approximately 391 meters, and this is Shanhing Square, approximately 384 meters, and the last one is the Empire State Building, 381 meters. These are the world's tallest towers till recently, right? And this is a picture showing all those world iconic tallest buildings, right? Tallest building, just now we have seen them elaborately, right? And this is what a photograph of Burj Khalifa, almost 838 meters. This tallest point is located at 838 meters, or around 830 meters, or 2722 feet, right? Compared to that, you see even the other buildings are almost looking very, very short, right? Therefore, this is how the high-rise tall structures, even we can see the other structures in the vicinity, they themselves are looking very smaller, right? And this is how the Burj Khalifa, right? Now once we see this, student, let us move to the discussions. Now we'll move to IS 1893 part 1 2016, which is called the criteria of earthquake resistant design of structures, right? Part 1, general provisions and buildings, right? Whereas this 1893 is divided into the 5 parts. The first one deals with the general provisions and buildings, and part 2 deals with the liquid retaining tanks, elevated and ground supported structures, and part 3 deals with the bridges and retaining structures, and part 4 deals with industrial structures including stack like structures, and part 5 deals with the dams and embankments, right, to be formulated, right? That is how the 5 parts of this, right? And now let us move to the discussions, right? Let us see the terminology or definitions, right? I'll go through these very quickly, student, right? The first one is closely spaced modes, right? What are these definitions? Closely spaced modes of a structure are those of the natural modes of oscillation of a structure whose natural frequencies differ from each other by 10% or less of the lower frequency, right? Now next one is critical damping, the damping beyond which the free vibration motion will not be oscillatory, right? Next, damping, the effect of the internal friction, inelasticity of materials, slipping, sliding, etc. in reducing the amplitude of the oscillation, right, is what referred to as a damping. Next one is design acceleration spectrum. It refers to an average smoothened graph of maximum acceleration as a function of natural frequency or natural period of oscillation for a specified damping ratio for expected earthquake excitations at the base of single degree of freedom, right? Now that is how, at the base, right, for single degree of freedom. Now next one is the ductility, means it is the capacity of a structure or its members to undergo large inelastic deformations like this, right, without significant loss of strength, right? There is a large inelastic deformations like this, right? Now next one is the modal mass mk in mode kth mode of a structure, means it is a part of the total seismic mass of the structure that is effective in natural mode number k of oscillation during horizontal or vertical ground motions. Next one, modal participation factor pk in kth mode, right, is the amount by which a natural mode k contributes to overall oscillations of the structure. Next one, mode shape coefficient pi ik is the spatial deformation pattern of oscillation along degrees of freedom I, where the structure is oscillating in its natural mode K, right? This is how it is oscillating in natural mode K, right? Next one, the natural period Tk in mode K of oscillation means it is the time taken in second by the structure to complete one cycle of oscillation, in its natural mode K of oscillation, like this. What I am now showing is in one cycle of oscillation, right? Next one is the normal mode of oscillation means the mode of oscillation in which there are special undamped free oscillations, which all points on the structure oscillate harmonically at the same frequency or period, such that these points reach their individual maximum response simultaneously, right? Individual maximum response simultaneously, like this, right? Peak ground acceleration, right? It is the maximum acceleration of the ground in a given direction of ground shaking, right? In a given direction of the ground shaking, right? Now, next one is the response reduction factor, notated by R. It is a factor by which the base shear induced in a structure, if it were to remain elastic, is reduced to obtain the design base shear, like this, right? Now, next one is the response spectrum. It is the representation of maximum response of a spectrum of idealized single degree of freedom system of different natural periods but having the same damping under the action of the same earthquake ground motion at their bases, right? That is what defined as the response spectrum. Next one is a response acceleration coefficient of a structure, SA by G, notated by SA by G, is the factor denoting the normalized design acceleration spectrum value to be considered for the design of structure subjected to earthquake ground shaking, right? Now, next one, the seismic weight of a floor, W, is the sum of the dead load of the floor, appropriate contribution of weights of columns, walls, or any other permanent element from the story above or below, finishes and services, and appropriate amounts of specified imposed load on the floor is defined as the seismic weight of a floor, notated by W. Next one is the time history analysis. It is an analysis of the dynamic response of a structure at each instant of time when its base is subjected to a specific ground motion time history, like this, right? The next one, base means it is the level at which the inertia forces generated in the building are considered to be transferred to the ground through the foundation, right? That is what called the base, right? That is how the base of a building, like this, right? Now, the base dimensions, D, right? It is the dimension in meters of the base of the building along the direction of the shaking. Let us say if earthquake is coming like this, then this is what called the base, D, right? Next, center of mass, the point of the point in the floor of a building through which the resultant of the inertia force of the floor is considered to act during the earthquake, right? This is all, right? Is notated by CM. During the earthquake shaking, right? This is generally notated by the CM, center of mass, right? Now, next one is the center of resistance. For single storied building, it is a point on the roof of the building through which when the resultant internal resistance acts, the building undergoes pure translation in the horizontal direction and no twist about vertical axis passing through the center of rigidity, right? No twist, right? Then that is what called the center of resistance for single story building. Whereas for multi-story buildings, it is the set of the points of the horizontal floors of the multi-story building through which when the resultant incremental internal resistance across those floors acts, all floors of the building undergo pure translation in the horizontal direction and as well as no twist about the vertical axis passing through the center of rigidity, right? And that is what called the center of resistance. Next one is eccentricity, design eccentricity, notated by EDI, is the value of the eccentricity to be used for floor I in the calculation of design torsion effects, like this, right? Next one, the static eccentricity, ESI, it is the distance between the center of the mass and center of resistance of floor I, right? What is center of mass, center of resistance? Just now we have seen. Therefore, The distance between these two is what called the static eccentricity. Static eccentricity, right? Next one. The design seismic base shear. Design seismic base shear notated by VB. It is a horizontal lateral force in the considered direction of the earthquake shaking that the structure shall be designed for, right? That the structure shall be designed for, right? That is what given by VB, right? Next one is diaphragm. It is a horizontal or nearly horizontal structural system, right? It is a horizontal or nearly horizontal structural system. For example, reinforced concrete floor like this, right? A slab, right? Or horizontal bracing like this system, which transmits the lateral forces to vertical elements connected to it, right? Which transmits the lateral forces to the vertical elements, maybe the column, right? Connected to it, right? That is what called the diaphragm, like this, right? The floor connected to the beam connected to column, right? Or that of the vertical structural wall connected to that of the column, right? Then these are what called the diaphragm, horizontal diaphragm, or that of the vertical, right? As appropriate. And height. Generally, they are what diaphragms are generally horizontal, right? Height of the floor. Height of the floor means it is the difference in vertical elevations in meters of a base of the building and top of the floor I of the building, right? Like this, right? Top of the height of the floor, that of the one floor, right? Next one, height of the building H. Height of the building H. It is the height of the building from the base, to the top of the roof level, Now, assuming it to be a tall story building, right? Excluding the height of the basements. Let us say there are the basements here, right? Excluding the heights of the basements, right? Basement stories. If basement walls are connected with the ground floor slab, or basement walls are fitted with the building columns, right? If this is the basement, right? Above this, what is that? Is what called H, right? This is what called the basement part. And also, including the height of the basement stories, if basement walls are not connected with the ground floor slab, right? That is how, if they are connected, if they are not connected, according with the height will be considered differently, right? Now, next one is in step back buildings. We'll see in the next photograph what is a step back building, student, right? We shall be taken as the average height of all the steps from the base, weighted with their corresponding floor areas, right? And in buildings founded on hill slopes, it shall be taken as the height of the roof from the top of the highest footing level to the pile cap, right? Highest footing level to the pile cap level, right? That next one, horizontal bracing system, right? It is a horizontal truss system that serves the same function as that of the diaphragm, right? Then previously diaphragm was horizontal, right? Like this. Now we are saying horizontal bracing system, right? Like this, horizontal bracing system, right? Which serves like a diaphragm, right? Now, next one is a lateral force resisting system. It is a part of the structural system and consisting of all the structural members that resist lateral inertia forces. Included in the building during the earthquake shaking, right? Now, next one, movement resisting frames. Just now we have seen the different structural system, students, right? Therefore, it is an assembly of the beams and columns that resist induced and externally applied forces primarily by flexure. Now you can say this is movement resisting frame, right? When it resists primarily by flexure only, right? Now, next one is ordinary movement resisting frame, notated by OMRF, right? Means it is a movement resisting frame designed and detailed as per IS 456 and IS 800, but not meeting the special detail requirement, ductility detailing, as per IS 13920 or IS 800. However, if it is meeting the ductility detailing, then that movement resisting frame is what referred to as SMRF, special movement resisting frame. Right? That is the difference between OMRF and SMRF, right? Now, next one is core structural wall, perimeter columns, and outrigger and belt truss system. Just now I have shown already in the initial photographs, right? What is that outrigger system, right? One movement, right? Like this, right? outrigger system, right? This one, right? Belt and truss outrigger system, right? Now that is what now we are referring, right? Therefore, it is the structural system comprising of the core of structural walls and perimeter columns resisting the vertical and lateral loads, with the core structural walls connected to select perimeter columns or column elements, often termed as outrigger elements, by D-beam elements known as outriggers at discrete locations along the height of the column, and the outriggered columns connected by D-beam elements, often known as belt trusses, just now I have shown in that figure, right? Typically at same level as the outrigger elements, like this, right? As that of the these are what called the belts, and these are what called outrigger beams and outrigger columns, right? As appropriate, right? Now next one is P delta effects. It is a secondary effect on the shear forces and bending moments of lateral force resisting elements generated under the action of the vertical loads interacting with the lateral displacement of the building, resulting from seismic effects, right? That is what called P delta effects, right? These are the secondary effects due to vertical loading. And next one is RC structural wall. RC structural wall means it is a wall designed to resist the lateral forces acting on its own plane. Means these are what called the RC structural walls, right? Or the example for this one is the shear wall. The shear wall is a RC structural wall. Right? Now let us see the next one is ordinary RC structural wall. It is a reinforced concrete RC wall designed and detailed as per IS 456, but not meeting the special ductility detailing as per IS 13920. Then that is what called ordinary RC structural wall. Whereas if it is meeting the ductility requirements as per IS 13920, then that is what referred to as special RC, reinforced concrete structural wall, right? There is a difference between ordinary and special RC structural walls, right? Now next one is the soft story. The soft story means it is the one in which the lateral stiffness is less than in the story above. The lateral stiffness is less than the story in the above. We'll see pictorially also, right? The story lateral stiffness is the total stiffness of all the seismic force resisting elements resisting the lateral earthquake shaking, right? Now next one is the weak story. It is the one which the story lateral strength, cumulative design shear strength of all the story members other than that of the unreinforced masonry URM infills is less than that of the story above, or the story lateral strength is at the strength of all seismic force resisting elements sharing the lateral story shear in the considered direction, right? Now that is how it is called the weak story. Whereas story drift, it is the relative displacement between the floor above and or below the story under consideration. This is what called story drift, right? And next one is story shear. The story shear, it is the sum of the design lateral forces at the levels above the story I. At the levels above the story I under consideration is what called story shear notated by VI, right? And two more definitions. Story lateral shear strength notated by SI. It is the total lateral strength of all lateral force resisting elements in the story considered in the practical plan direction of the building, right? And next one is story lateral translational stiffness KI. It is the total lateral translational stiffness of all the lateral force resisting elements in the story considered in the principal plan direction of the building, right? This is of the different definitions of these earthquake related terms, right? Now let us move quickly. I hope students understanding these discussions, right? Now I'll move to the other discussions, right? Then what are these load combinations and increase in permissible stresses? Now the code says that the design horizontal earthquake load when lateral load resisting elements are oriented along the two mutually orthogonal horizontal directions, the structure shall be designed for effects due to full design earthquake load in one horizontal direction at a time, right? Like this, right? In x direction as well as in the z direction, whereas y direction is vertically upward, right? Like this, right? In one horizontal direction at a time, not not in both directions simultaneously. You cannot consider simultaneously acting in the both directions, right? Now next one is when lateral load resisting elements are not oriented along mutually orthogonal horizontal directions, then we should consider these combinations of the earthquake effects, right? Plus or minus ELX, right? Plus or minus 30% of ELY, right? Y is the transverse direction. Z is now, as per this code, Z is in the vertical direction, right? And R plus or minus 30% of ELX plus or minus 100% of ELY. Now let us see the assumptions made in this code also, student, right? These are the assumptions, right? All the earthquake ground motions are complex, therefore the these are complex, the ground motions are complex and irregular, consisting of several frequencies of varying amplitudes, each lasting for small durations, right? Now next one is earthquake is not likely to occur simultaneously with the high wind or maximum flood or maximum sea waves, right? Important assumption, right? The third one is the values of the elastic modulus of the material wherever required will be taken for the static analysis until unless we have a definite values proved for the same from the dynamic considerations, right? Now let us see these earthquake combinations in two transverse direction, right? Therefore using that, now I can say that we would have these different combinations: 1.2 multiplied by dead load plus 1.2 multiplied by live load plus 1.2 multiplied by earthquake loads, right? Generally it is ELX, but now we would have ELX plus or minus 30% of ELY, or simultaneously ELY plus or minus 30% of ELX, right? That is how the dead load, live load, earthquake combinations are 1.5 times dead load and earthquake combinations, right? 1.5 dead load plus or minus ELX plus 30% of ELY, or ELY plus or minus 30% ELX, right? And this is for the stability consideration. 90% of dead load plus or minus 1.5 multiplied by ELX plus or minus 30% of ELY, or 90% of dead load plus or minus 1.5 times ELY plus or minus 30% of ELY for two orthogonal directions, right? Now next one is the earthquake design vertical earthquake effects, right? However, it shall be considered when any one of the following conditions are applicable. The one, structure is located in seismic zone 4 or 5, right? And the structure has vertical or plan irregularities. And the next one is structure is rested on soft soils, right? Right? And bridges. The structure has long spans, right? Like this, long spans, right? Or the structure has large horizontal overhangs, horizontal overhangs of structural members or subsystems. Then in such a case, design vertical earthquake forces should be considered. Earthquake forces in the vertical direction should also be considered as per this specification. Now next one, combinations to account for 3-directional earthquake ground shaking, 3-directional, like this, right? Now I have to have a building wherein I have to have all the 3-directional earthquake ground shaking, like this, right? Therefore, in which case how, right? Now the code says that right, you consider all the three earthquake load combinations. One, plus or minus ELX plus or minus 30% of ELY plus or minus 30% of ELY, right? Now cyclically you just rotate with ELX with ELY ELZ, right? That is plus or minus ELY plus or minus 30% of ELZ plus or minus 30% of ELY, and ELZ plus or minus 30% of ELX plus or minus 30% of ELY, right? Now obviously using this, now I have to have these different load combinations as we have seen in the previous case, just with ELX and ELY. Now I have to have just replace that ELX plus 30% of ELY with plus or minus 30% of ELZ also additionally, right? And using dead load, live load, earthquake combinations, right? And 1.5 dead load and earthquake combinations, and for stability, right? 90% plus or minus 1.5. All the three earthquake loads in three mutually perpendicular directions, right? Three mutually perpendicular directions, right? X, right, and Y as well as Z directions. X, Y, and Z directions respectively. Then next one. As an alternative to this procedure, the net response earthquake load due to combined effect in the three components can be taken by this formula. EL is equal to square root of ELX square plus ELY square plus ELZ square, right? Alternatively, right? Then also it satisfies the design requirements, right? Now next one is increase in net pressure on soils in design of foundations, right? In soft soils, no increase shall be applied in bearing pressure. Now course says that you should not increase, right? Now next one is that of the design acceleration spectrum. Means for the purpose of determining the design seismic force, the country is classified into 4 seismic zones as shown in the figure 1. Now let us see this figure 1, student, right? Right, this is how the seismic zone map, Now I'll just show this figure, right? Like this, right? This is showing the seismic zone map of the India, wherein now this is divided into zone 2, right? Just violet color, yellow zone 3, right? Green color zone 4, and red color is zone 5, right? Like this, let us say example, Hyderabad is there in zone 2, right? Let's seismic zone, right? Whereas now red means if I go to this Imphal, right, or Itanagar here, or even if I go to Bhuj earthquake, we had the Bhuj earthquake in Kutch, Gujarat, right? Or even a few parts very near to this Himalayan region, right? They are coming under this zone 5, right? That is how the entire India is having the different zone 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 zones as shown in this figure. Now once we see this zonation part, right? Now let us come to the next subheading as the design horizontal seismic coefficient. The design seismic horizontal coefficient notated by AH for a structure shall be determined using this formula. AH is equal to Z by 2 SA by G R by I, or Zi by 2R SA by G. Alternatively, it can be written as Zi by 2R SA by G. Right? Both are same, right? Where Z is the seismic zone factor given in the table 3. We'll see that where I is the importance factor, right? Which can be taken as 1.5 for the critical and lifeline structures such as hospitals or electric substations, etc. 1.2 for business continuity structures, and 1 for the rest means just normal residential buildings, right? And R is the response reduction factor, and SA by G is the design acceleration coefficient for different soil types normalized with peak ground acceleration. Therefore divided by G means normalization is being done, right? Corresponding to 5% of the damping. 5% of the damping, right? However, for use in equivalent static method, right, this SA by G is given by this set of formula, student. You just see for rock and hard soils, right? Keeping you the time period of oscillation. If greater than 0 and less than 0.4 seconds, it is 2.5. If time period is greater than 0.4 second and less than 4 seconds, it is 1 by T, and if time is greater than 4 seconds, it is 0.25 for rock or hard soil strata. Like that, you please see for medium and stiff soils, right? The SA by G value is given. Similarly for soft soils, the SA by G values are given for as applicable for equivalent static method, right? Whereas if you are using the response spectrum method, then similarly SA by G values are given for rocky hard soil stratas as well as for medium and stiff soils, and lastly that of the soft soils. You just go through these, right? Now whereas in these here we do have the soil type 1 means rock or hard strata, hard soils, right? Soil type 2 means medium and stiff soils. Soil 3 is that of the soft soils, that of the soft soils, right? Now in table 4, the value of SPT, right, penetration test, right, to be used shall be weighted average of n of the soil layers from existing ground level to 30 meters below the existing ground level, right? Now that is how the in table 4. Now let us see this table 1, percentage increase in net bearing pressures and skin frictions of the soil, student, right? Keeping in you the type 1 rock and hard soils, percentage increase in allowable net bearing pressure is 50%, whereas for type B, medium or stiff soils, right, 25%, whereas for soft soils, as code as already given in the previous specification, no, you cannot increase, right, like this, right? And the next discussion is on the table 2, classification of types of soils for determining percentage increase in net bearing pressures and skin friction, right? Now type A are that is what rock or hard soils, right, all having SPT value, right, SPT value n above 30, standard penetration test, SPT, right, SPT, standard penetration test value greater than 30, then they are what referred to as rocks and hard soils, right? Or even other definitions also given, right? Well graded gravel or well graded sand, SW, both with less than 5% of passing 75 mm and C1 analysis, right, etc. You may just go through this, right? What falls under this type A, it is defined in this table, right? Similarly, type B, medium or stiff soils, right? Poorly graded sand or poorly graded sands with gravel, SP, with little or no fines, having n value between 10 to 30, and other definitions also, right? We just see this, right? And third one is type C, soft soils, right? All soft soils other than SP with n value less than 10, with various possible soils, right? Notated by this MI, MH, CI, CH, CICH or MIMH, etc., right? Or MICI, MICI, MHCH, right? That is how the different soil types, right? And fourth one is a type 4, unstable or collapsible liquefiable soils, right? Requires site specific study and special treatment according to the site conditions, right? You please see the class 6.3.5.3. Now next one is the table 3, seismic zone factors. Just now we have seen, right, the entire India is divided into 4 seismic zones, right, where zone 2 is having a zone factor Z of 0.1, whereas zone 3 is having a zone factor of Z is equal to 0.16, zone 4 value of 0.24, and zone 5, highest zone, right, seismic zone factor is 0.36, right? And next one is effects of design earthquake loads applied on structure can be considered in 2 ways. There is one, either by static equivalent static method or dynamic analysis method. However, in turn, dynamic analysis can be performed in 3 ways, namely one, response spectrum method or the modal time history method, and the third one is time history method. Now let us see these elaborately, student. This we already seen the seismic zonation zone of India, right? This is how the spectra for response spectrum method, right? The natural time period against SA by G value for 3 types of rocks, right? The hard rock and medium rock and soft rock, right? Whereas hard rock means bold line, right? Medium soils is with medium line, and soft soil is with thin line, right? There is a SA by G. If you know the time period, if you know, let us say the time period for hard rock is equal to 2, then 2, then SA by G is equal to corresponding to that. Now this is approximately 0.5. That is how you can get those values, right? For the this is the spectra for response spectrum method. Similarly, this is the spectra for equivalent static method, right? There is a 2 spectra are given. 2A is spectra for equivalent static method. This 2B is spectra for response spectrum method, right? This is a design acceleration coefficient SA by G corresponding to 5% of the damping, right? Now next one is table 4. I hope, student, you are understanding these discussions, right? Now let us move to classification of types of soil for determining the spectrum to be used to estimate design earthquake force, right? There is a soil type 1, rock or hard rock. Just now we have seen n greater than 30, right? Similarly, soil type 2, medium or stiff soils, means n between 10 to 30. Just now we have discussed, and the rock type 3, soil type 3, soft soils where n value is equal to less than 30, and the different types of soil classifications are given, right? Silts of intermediate compressibility notated by Mi, so on and so forth. Others MSCI, CH, Mi, MS, etc., etc. Right? Now you just go through this, right? And next one is the equivalent static method may be used for analysis of regular structures with approximate natural time period Ta less than 0.4 seconds. Then only equivalent static method shall be used, right? Otherwise, you cannot use this, right? For structural analysis, the moment of inertia shall be taken as like this, right? For RC, the reinforced concrete and masonry structures, 70% of the gross moment of inertia of the columns, like this, that of the columns, and 35% of that of the beams, right? Only 35% of that of the beams, right? Whereas in steel structures, right, for both beams as well as columns, right, 100% gross moment of inertia can be considered. That is the advantage of the steel structures. Right? Now, and they will be having the more time period also, right? And now let us see the next discussion, right? For underground structures and buildings whose base is located at depths 30 meters and above, age at the base shall be taken as half the value obtained from class 6.4.2. This reduced value shall be used only for estimating the inertia effects due to mass at the corresponding levels below the ground. The inertia effects for the above ground portion of the building shall be estimated based on the unreduced values of the AH, right? Above this ground level, unreduced values of the AH only, right? For estimating the inertia effects due to masses of the structure and foundations placed between the ground level and 30-meter depth, right? This is 30-meter depth, right? The design horizontal acceleration spectrum value shall be linearly interpolated between AH at this ground level to 0.5 AH. At the 30-meter below, it is 0.5 AH, right? Now you interpolate in between. Wherever you want, you just interpolate in between, right? That is how the interpolation shall be done, right? Next one is the design seismic acceleration spectral value AV in vertical direction or due to vertical motions. AV is given by this for buildings governed by this IS 1893 part 1. We are there in this part, student, right? This is how ZI by 2R multiplied by SA by G. SA by G is 2.5, but that is now with a reduction factor of 2 by 3, right? Therefore, here SA by G is equal to 2.5 and this reduction factor is 2 by 3. That is how AV is two-thirds of that ZI by 2R multiplied by SA by G, with SA by G is equal to 2.5, right? Like that, you please see for liquid retaining tanks governed by IS 1893 part 2, right? It is same, two-thirds of that as we have seen above, right? And for bridges governed by IS 1893 part 3, right, it is the same, two-thirds of ZI by 2R multiplied by SA by G. Whatever that SA by G value is there, you take that, right? Whereas for industrial structures governed by IS 1893 part 4, it is the same as if two-thirds of ZI by 2R multiplied by SA by G. Whatever that SA by G is there, you take that and you multiply with 2 by 3. In each of these cases, two-thirds only. Please note that in each of these cases, it is two-thirds only. Either SA by G is 2.5 for buildings and liquid retaining tanks, whereas for bridges and the other industrial structures, it is purely SA by G value, right? Now, next one is when design acceleration spectrum is developed specific to a project site, the same may be used for design of structures of project. In such cases, the effects of the site-specific spectrum shall not be less than those arising out of the design spectrum specified in this standard, right? Now, next one. I hope, friend, you are understanding these discussions. We are there in IS 1893 part 1 2016, the latest earthquake code, right? Now, I hope, student, you understood the discussions what we had in today's class on earthquake and earthquake loads and earthquake resistant design of the structures conforming to IS 1893 part 1 2016. Part 1 deals with the general provisions and buildings, right? I hope you understood this discussion set. If you like the discussions what we had in today's class, you just try to click like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? We'll meet with another discussion in the next class. Till then, bye bye students, right?